Live therapeutic music, or LTM, is an art form based on the science of sound. Really, it has its roots in physics. And so there are three components: resonance, sympathetic vibration, and entrainment. So resonance is another word for frequency. In his book, The Power of Sound, Joshua Leeds talks about everything in creation has resonance. This guitar and these strings, obviously this is actually tuned to an open G tuning, but the guitar itself has a resonant frequency or whole note. In fact, the luthier, Alan Williams, that built this guitar, when he and I went through his shop, he would pick up pieces of wood and he would tap the wood and listen to the timbre of the wood. And he was matching the woods, not based on what they looked like, but on their sound, on their resonance. So the same thing is true with our bodies. Our bodies have resident frequencies that they begin to naturally oscillate and vibrate when exposed to. If you've ever taken a wine goblet and you you wet your finger and you rim the wine goblet, it begins to sing. That note is that wine goblet's resonant frequency or resonance. That's one component. Sympathetic vibration is basically what happens when one object produces vibration and the effect it has on another object nearby. If I were to take two identical tuning forks, say A flat, and I would strike one tuning fork, it would ring. The other tuning fork, held in my other hand, if it were exactly the same tuning fork, would begin to oscillate. It would begin to vibrate. That's sympathetic vibration. The vibrations from the first tuning fork is causing the second tuning fork to vibrate. Now, if I were to dampen the first tuning fork, guess what happens to the second tuning fork that I'm holding in my other hand? It still continues to vibrate. So that's sympathetic vibration. And so when a music practitioner goes in to work with a patient, the practitioner is providing vibration through the guitar or the harp or the keyboard or even the voice, and the patient receives those vibrations. Now the fun begins when we get into this concept of entrainment. Now entrainment is a concept that was discovered in the 1650s by this Dutch scientist, Christian Huygens. He basically is credited with inventing the pendulum clock. And he discovered that when he put two pendulum clocks on the same wall and he began experimenting with the pendulums, he found that when he started the pendulums and released them to where they traveled in opposite directions, that the vibration of the larger clock would influence the vibration or the movement of the smaller clock. So when he would begin this test, the pendulums were moving in opposite directions. But he'd come back in a couple of hours and guess what? The pendulums were synchronized. They had entrained with one another or synchronized. So they began moving the same. So how does that apply to live therapeutic music? Well, music practitioners are trained to watch for subtle signs in the patient's response. Sometimes we're watching for respirations or for heart rate or breathing, anything that we can determine a tempo. And as we continue playing within that tempo, the patient will begin to entrain with us. And then as we slow the tempo of that music down, quite often the heart rate or the rate of respiration in the patient begins to come down with it. So that's what we call entrainment. Now, does this happen with every patient that we work with? No, there are a lot of extenuating outside influences that can affect the results of a live therapeutic music session. The main thing to remember about live therapeutic music is that we present this music in a way where healing can occur. And this healing could be physiological, it can be emotional, it can be a spiritual. We're creating a healing atmosphere. We have no stated goals in a therapeutic music session. We're just providing an atmosphere where healing can occur.